have a wonderful trainer here today. Some of you probably know Briana Moore. Miss Briana Moore, who prefers to be called Ms. B, has conducted symposiums aimed at the development of people and agencies for over 30 years throughout the Bay Area for medical practitioners, community-based organizations, city, state, and federal agencies in San Francisco, Alameda, Contra Costa, Los Angeles, Long Beach, and San Bernardino counties. Ms. B has developed and presented learning events focused on nurturing traumatized women and men with physical, emotional, and mental injuries. Her training portfolio includes trainings such as When Compassion Hurts, Trauma-Informed Systems 101, Healing Circles for Grief and Loss, Medically Fragile Children 0 to 5, Anxiety, Grief and Depression, What's the Difference, Codependency 101, Agency Healing, Working Through Wounds at Work, How to Juggle Bowling Balls When You're on Roller Skates. I love that one. And also as a therapist for young women, Ms. B provides direction and guidance to assist them with staying focused on important elements in their life. So we're so grateful for you being here today, Ms. B. And I will be monitoring the chat for you today. So people, if you have questions as we go along, I will log them and make sure we get all your questions answered. Thank you so much for being here. Take it away, Ms. B. And you're muted. Hold on.
There you go. Do you know the #1 phrase of 2020?
No, what is it?
You're on mute.
Yeah. That's good.
Unmute yourself. So thank you everybody for being here today. I really always look at it as an honor to present information on healing and self-care for people who are on the front lines, caring for other folks, caring for other folks' children, and supervisors and mental health practitioners that are caring for people who are feeling some wounds and some injuries from whatever they're going through, but especially since we have a devastating global pandemic that has seemed to have resurfaced again. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time. In this 2 hours, I'm going to be giving you a lot of information. And if I start to talk too fast, just raise your hand, say, hey, slow down, because I'm not getting all that, right? Because it's a lot of information and I want you to be able to get. Be sure to have a pen and paper to take notes, because I'm going to be giving you some affirmations. I'm going to give you little tidbits of information so that you will be able to just stay on your path. And I really admire and encourage you to take good care of yourself. It's your responsibility. And we'll be talking about that self-care throughout this presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So you all can see that, right?
Yes, we can. We're good.
Cool. So my name is Briana Moore. I'm an associate clinical social worker. The name of my practice is Be the Light, Education and Consulting Services, and I am retired and I live in Rio Vista, California. So one of the things that I want you to do to drop something in the chat is what called you to do this work at this point in your life? What called you to do this work at this point in your life? One of the things that's really important in our work, relationships develop among stakeholders, professionals, people on the front lines, childcare providers, teachers, supervisors, all the people that are here today, plus many, many more. These relationships exposes staff to the trauma and stress that may be experienced every single day, day in and day out. I have presented this training to various sectors, including those from the fields in which you all work. You all have chosen a profession in which you help people every day. Through your work, your job entails listening to the stories of those who have experienced hurt, harm, and danger. As a teacher, whether you're wiping a little snotty nose or making a CPS report or just telling a child or one of your fellow teachers to be encouraged. One of my favorite sayings, you're gonna write this down, it's already all right. It's already all right. And that helps people, it helps me to move through what's in my face right here and right now, to seeing in the future that, you know what, I have come through many, many hard places before. And this is just yet another opportunity to pull myself up and stand up. We can do this. We have done it before. So before I get started, I would like to thank those and give honor to those who came to these lands before us, those indigenous tribes, those who were brought here as enslaved captives, those who immigrated here to seek peace and grace. I thank you for standing and dying and suffering so we can all be here and present together to do the work that's necessary to heal ourselves as well as those others that we work with. We are all on a healing journey. So there's a song that I'm not going to play right now, but I want to just give you the name of it. And it's by India Ari, and it's I Am the Light. So I'm just going to play a little bit of that for you. So this song tells my story. I Be the Light is the vernacular of I Am Light. A-H is I, B, D, L-I-G-H-T. My social location is in Rio Vista, California. I am a grandmother of 2 boys. I am retired for 2 years from the city and county of San Francisco, where I worked with people and families who were unhoused. My last 2 years were spent managing a SAMHSA grant in collaboration with the Bay Area mental health agencies and the San Francisco Department of Public Health as a project director for trauma-informed systems for 9 Bay Area counties. Our goal today is to give you some information that you may or may not have heard before. Some tools to help you remember when you are stressed out, all while having a little fun. So I want to encourage you to check out this total song from India Ari. I am not the pieces of the dream I left behind. I am light. It's a very graceful song for meditation. So these are our intended goals for today. While it's not my intention to cause you any trauma or stress, we know that intentions have impact. If you are impacted in any way, I invite you to take care of yourself by whatever means necessary. Stepping out, turning off your camera, get you some water, ask for support. If you notice some difference, then you must understand that there are resources available. Asking for help is a sign of strength. It's not a sign of weakness. Please reach out to your personal support network or your therapist. We all know that everybody needs a therapist, right? While we move to this material together today, you may notice that you are not breathing. In fact, in your mind, you may have left the room. If you notice that something is beginning to be too much, just stop. I say stop, breathe, orient yourself to the room by looking around. Notice the color in the room, something that caught your attention in the room, perhaps a little cobweb in the corner, just something to bring you back to the here and now. You may want to notice your feet on the ground. What happens is that sometimes when we listen to the stories of trauma, we start to move out. I call it mind traveling or wandering. So if you notice this, I'll just say stop and let's breathe, or let's do an activity. You have permission to do only the things that feel good and right for you. And just know that it's not the same for everybody. That's why we have different fingerprints, and no two people respond to situations the same every time. So our goals for today is we're going to look and recognize some signs and symptoms of trauma and stress and chronic stress, and give you some tools for that. And then we're going to gain some knowledge around the noticeable and hidden factors of fight or flight. You know, your brain and your body is pretty miraculous and pretty amazing, and it doesn't need your permission to take care of you. So I'm going to talk to you about fight or flight and how it impacts your performance at work and at home. Then we're going to look at some self-care ideas, both for professionals as well as individuals. And then we'll look at the similarities and the differences of compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma, and secondary traumatic stress. And then finally learn some steps on how people manage becoming resilient. Yes, 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 it's a lot, and it's 2 hours. So buckle your seatbelt, and here we go. So let's just take a moment to notice your body and how you feel. And one of the ways to do that is by breathing. One breath that we use is called 4-1-5. Yes, I used to work in San Francisco, and yes, that's San Francisco area code. But you know, 510 or 707, they kind of don't work really good. So I'm sticking with 4-1-5. So 4-1-5 is breathing in through your nose to the count of 4, hold for 1 beat, and then exhale through your mouth to the count of 5. And the exhale is deep from your diaphragm. It's not like blowing out cigarette smoke or something like that, but rather like you just returned from a full day of shopping with a 4-year-old that wanted everything they saw. And if you can't quite make it to 5, your best is good enough. Practice makes improvement. You can write that down too. Practice does not make perfect. Practice makes improvement. So let's just get comfortable in our bodies. Feel the chair and space that you're in. And I invite you to turn your attention inward by lowering your gaze or even just closing your eyes. Feel your spine lengthening as you connect to the earth and the sky. As you breathe in, see yourself being more connected to your body. Notice how you feel, if you feel any tension in your body, in your shoulders, in your neck, in your back. We'll give that a little focus after this slide. I invite you to return to 4-1-5 should you notice any areas of discomfort in your mind, your body, or spirit. Can we agree to that? All right. So here's another exercise. What I'd like you to do is drop it in the chat, one word in your feeling bubble. And then also say what area of your body that tells you that you are feeling stress. So we'll come back to that. This model is adapted by Sandra Bloom, and she wrote a series of books on the sanctuary model that looks at trauma and stress in the workplace and environment. So now let's just talk a little bit about being all stressed out and the feeling of trauma. So has anybody in this Zoom room experienced no stress within the past week? Probably not. Yes, I said probably. Chronic stress and trauma can affect our health and our relationships and our work. Can we think about the past year and a half? Quarantine, isolated, homeschooling, working from home, masks, hand washing. We all have a stake in creating a more safe and supportive healing and work environments. It might be nice to dream that our stress will just melt away because our lives are just so relaxing. But for the most part, that is far from reality. So before we talk about self-care, let's talk a little bit about stress. Stress is a part of our daily lives, and it comes in many forms. We may think of stress as connected to bad things, but sometimes good things can cause stress. Getting married, buying a house, or having a new baby are all happy and exciting life events that may still be the source of tremendous stress and anxiety. Some stressors may be considered manageable and even mild, while others are more severe and have a more damaging long-term impact on us and our emotional health. It's important to remember that stress is the eye of the beholder. Stress is in the eye of the beholder. What is very stressful to you may not cause your coworker or even a family member to worry at all. Likewise, you may not be bothered by the same things that annoy your best friend. This does not make one person stronger or weaker than another, just different. Strength lies in the ability to recognize your stressors and act accordingly. By going into the helping professions, you have chosen a work that leads you to walk with your clients through many difficult, complicated, and often painful experiences. Since stress is a part of our daily lives, we must pay attention to its impact on our physical and emotional well-being. The mind and the body are constantly influencing and altering one another. Stressful experiences that are constant can lead to exhaustion, overreaction, to less stressful events, and a symptom of anxiety and depression. With this pandemic, people are less patient and tolerant with one another. We give less grace to each other. People are more prickly these days. You could misread a message in a text. Or we were talking before, people drive, cut you off, and they pull out a gun, an A-15, and shoot you. We're better than that. We're much better than that. But this level of stress and anxiety as a result of this pandemic, as a result of all that's going on in the world, is hard to navigate. It requires a huge amount of self-care and self-grace. And then you will be able to extend that out to other individuals. The more intense and constant the stressors, the more an individual's emotional and physical health may be compromised. The physical toll of this constant state of increased stress comes in the form of various illnesses, physical complaints such as insomnia, backaches, headaches, stomach aches, high blood pressure, and yes, even heart disease. There is some research that shows, and I'll talk about this when I get to the part on grief, but it just came to my mind now. There's some research that shows that Black women die 49% more from chronic heart failure than any other group. The research says it's because we hold grief and take it in our bodies more than any other group whatsoever. So if you are a woman of color out there and you got something that you're grieving over, I want to say, let that go. Just let that go. It's not as easy as it sounds, but it could be life-threatening. Okay, so this says, I'm a little stressed right now. Just turn around and leave quietly and no one will get hurt. So let's start with the basic understanding of stress, anxiety, and chronic stress. So like I just said, we all have stressful situations in our fast-paced lives these days. As this country begins to open up and then close back up and then open back up again, and now we're in another closed phase, the CDC's latest recommendations that even vaccinated people should wear their masks indoors. If this feels confusing to you, if it feels scary to you, if it feels overwhelming to you, that is feeling stress. So stress. The definition: overcome with life pressures causes the hormone adrenaline to be suddenly released. Results from a sensory stimulation, something that you could see, hear, taste, feel, and smell. So basically what stress is that you have a situation that is activated by your senses. And then your breathing slows and your heartbeat slows. Actually, it speeds up. And then when the stressor is removed, then your breathing slows and your heartbeat slows. And like I said before, stress can be a positive motivator, such as when it helps you to avoid danger or meeting a deadline. So stress is exacerbated from your senses. Anxiety, on the other hand, when the stressor has been removed, but you still have the feeling of doom and you still have activated heartbeat and your breathing is really, really limited. Your hand and your feet and your face are sweaty and your breathing is shallow. That's anxiety. The stressor has removed, but you're still feeling some kind of way about that. That's the difference between stress and anxiety. Chronic stress, however, is the response to emotional pressure suffered for a prolonged period of time in which an individual perceives they have little or no control. It can occur in response to everyday stressors as well as to exposure to traumatic events. We will watch a little clip that explains this a little bit later in the presentation. So we are experiencing chronic stress as a result of the pandemic. According to the diagnostic manual, the DSM-5, it defines adjustment disorder as a traumatic event that has occurred over a 9-month period of time. After that 9-month period of time, it moves to post-traumatic stress disorder. We are now suffering with PTSD as a result of the pandemic. So if you're feeling prickly, if you're feeling hypervigilant, if you're feeling hyperarousal, and I'll explain these a little bit later, then you're in the right place. If you find yourself scanning where you are, not feeling safe, and looking a little bit deeper under somebody's mask, or somebody's looking at you like you got the cooties and you looking at somebody else like they have the cooties, that is chronic stress and PTSD. So just want to name what you might be feeling and experiencing these days. So chronic stress also may be the cause of hair loss, headaches, heart disease, asthma, weight gain, poor gut health, and diabetes. So last year, we didn't know when it will end, but we do know that life, the way we know it, has changed. This is a new normal that will be with us for a very long time. And we are surprised what we can handle. We are surprised by our resilience. So these are the stressors that are related to chronic stress. So kids are going to be back in school, maybe, maybe not. What happens if you have 2 children at different schools? You may have other stressors that are listed here. Just take a moment and drop that in the chat as well. But these are some big ticket items. And poor sleep is actually now coronasomnia, a term used for sleep problems related to the pandemic. I'll talk a little bit about that too. However, it is the impact of the uncertainty and the barrage of information that we are getting. We take the information to bed with us and it affects how we rest. So sleep, environmental triggers, social media, stressful events. Some of you may have experienced grief and loss of a loved one as a result of COVID.
Yes.
Weren't able to be with them face to face when they made their transition.
Ms. B, there's some people putting some things in the chat about juggling too many things for family.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Someone said juggling too many things for family.
Yes.
So lots of family stressors happening right now. And
Yeah.
family members in the hospital due to COVID, and then still family members refusing to get vaccines. So that's also a stressor.
Yes. Another big stressor is feeling unappreciated and unsupported. All of these are crucial elements related to chronic stress. And that's why you're here today, to show you, and you get to show yourself that you are very much appreciated and you have support right at your fingertips through this organization, First Five Alameda. So I was telling you about coronasomnia. These are 6 things that doctors wish people knew. Get bright light early. People just need to get back to the basics about sleep. That's what we take for granted, our sleep. According to Dr. Rosen, it's about going to bed and getting up at the same time every day, as well as getting sunlight or bright light for the first 1 or 2 hours after waking up. How many people are waking up like at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning and you never did that before, right? I wake up every day at 3:30 a.m. on the nose. I'm retired. I don't have an alarm clock. This is coronasomnia. The things that you want to remind your internal clock of is when it's time to be awake. So perform a nighttime routine 30 to 60 minutes before you wind down and signal your brain it's time to go to sleep. People are sleeping at different times. It's okay to take a nap. It's okay to take a nap. They say that in Google, so you know if they say it in Google, it must be true. There's even a Facebook page on taking a nap. So give yourself permission. Give your system a break. Our sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive with all that's going on, and that's why people are having trouble sleeping. We need to do things that relax our sympathetic nervous system. While many people think exercise helps, timing is everything. At night, a person's core body temperature drops and dips over the course of the night. And when you exercise, you elevate your core body temperature. Exercising is awesome, but it should be done in the morning or at least 3 hours before going to bed. The importance of a clear mind. It's also important to use mental health strategies, which is something that Dr. Rosen uses with her patient with chronic insomnia. She recommends setting aside worry time. Take 10 minutes to write down all the things racing through your mind. This typically should occur 1 to 2 hours before bedtime in another room. Doing it close to bedtime may be associated with increased agitation and trouble before falling asleep. Writing your thoughts helps to clear them from your mind. You can even rip the paper up, crumble it up, and throw it away as a symbolic act of dumping the thoughts. How news adds to anxiety. Now, some of you might not be old enough to remember the news with Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite was the best newsman on TV. You know why? He did his news in 30 minutes. Got in, got out. Now we have 24 hours of news on every channel. Some of you may even be able to remember when the TV went off at 1 o'clock in the morning. They said, now go to sleep. And there was nothing on TV. So it's important to give yourself a break from the news, especially with all of the drama and trauma that's going on these days and the repeating of the same things. They could be incredibly anxiety provoking. The right kind of noise can help. There are several applications now that you can have with bilateral, write that down, bilateral music. And this is the music that stimulates both sides of your brain. We use it in a technique that I use with my patients called brain spotting, which is a way to get down to the subcortex of trauma. A little bit too much. That's another training. But bilateral music will help your brain and your body to relax. Why alcohol won't work. While some individuals have been self-medicating with alcohol even prior to the pandemic, it's important to avoid using beer, wine, and spirits for their sedative properties. People might feel like they fall asleep more quickly, but it won't be restful. Dr. Rosen says alcohol will prevent lying awake for hours when you get in bed, but it changes the whole way your sleep architecture looks. Adding alcohol use too close to bedtime decreases rapid eye movement, sleep, which is one of the deep restorative stages of sleep, earlier in the night. Later in the night, as the alcohol wears off, there's an increase in REM sleep called REM rebound. REM is rapid eye movement, if you remember. That REM is associated with vivid dreams and even nightmares, which is even also more anxiety provoking. Alcohol is associated with increased wakenings during the night, which is further disruptive to your sleep. So a cup of hot tea, chamomile tea with no sugar works just fine. And you could have 2 bags. There's no such thing as relapsing on chamomile tea. So do what you need to do to invoke your rest and your sleep, but watch out for coronasomnia.
You know, it's interesting, Ms. B, people are adding things in the comment about.
Okay. Let's take a look at the chat. Let's go take a look at the chat, Beth.
Yes, it's interesting. Some people are saying they're a night bird, and that they've also noticed that they're waking up around 3. And some people are feeling a little overwhelmed about like, what do I do about it? Kind of depressed. And someone also commented that the beats help too. I'm not sure what that means. I'd love to hear from Ra. I think that's Ra, but I'd love
BEETS, like the vegetable beat or the music?
Binaural beats. Binaural beat.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And people are commenting that a young adult in their life doesn't watch the news, although she somehow manages to have a knowing about what's happening. So that's so interesting. And someone said the Hatch Rest Mini sound machine can be found at Target. And it helps with falling asleep and waking up peacefully. So all kinds of interesting. I use an app called Calm.
Yes, me too.
So anyway, and some people limiting their news to 30 minutes a day. That's brilliant. Great. Anyway, some wonderful comments. Thank you for letting me interrupt and share those.
Great, thank you. So just pop in anytime you need to. So now we're going to take a look at identifying stressors related to chronic stress. We'll go into more of this later, but an example could be something like an event that you cannot control. So let's think about a time when there was no toilet paper anywhere. Remember that? Last year we went to Costco and grocery outlet, and even Walmart had no toilet paper. And then they began to issue 1 pack per household. Excuse me. That simple thing called stressful internal dialogue, things that you said to yourself and others, feelings like worry and concern, and yes, fear. And fear caused people to hoard and not share. We'll go into the physical effects in a minute, but as well as the brain and neurological impact. But this stress cycle is a real thing for anything that we cannot control. Yes?
Yes. Someone is even asking, just in terms of sleep, if melatonin helps. It's not been helpful to me, but some people find it helpful, I think.
Yeah, it's not helpful for me either because it gives me a headache. So the physiological effects we're going to go into, and we're also going to go into the brain and nervous system, the automatic past programming response. But this is a stress cycle And identifying your stressors is what's really important. It's the little tiny things. So in this slide, you may want to notice what you can control and what you cannot control. This is what you cannot control, things that are on the outside, and these are the things that you can control, right? A positive attitude, following CDC, social distancing, my kindness and grace, limiting my social media, finding fun things to do at home, and turning off the news. Things you cannot control is how much toilet paper is at the store. Well, they re-upped again on the toilet paper, but they might go back out again. How long this will last, you have no idea. How others will react, other people's motives, the actions of others. And you cannot control if others follow the rules of social distancing. You can, however, ask people in a polite way, excuse me, can you back up a little bit? Or excuse me, can you step forward a little bit? Just a little kindness and grace works a ton. So now we're gonna take a look at trauma, which is an event, an experience, and an effect. So the event is actual danger or extreme threat of harm. The experience of that is fight, flight, or freeze, and you feel helpless to escape. This experience overwhelms the brain and the body, and the effect or the result of that is disintegration and dysregulation, which leads to dysregulation, and it can have lasting adverse effects. So take yesterday when I was looking at the Senate, and I was listening to these 4 officers recant the story of the January 6th insurrection. Now I know, and my body was telling me, you should get up and not watch this. But I was helpless to escape. I couldn't turn the TV off. What mode was I in? I was in the freeze mode. As I watched people cry and I watched people weep, I also watched the Black man actually use a derogatory term for African-American people. He said it. He didn't say the N-word or anything. One other guy slammed the table. So their trauma was still being lived out right before the Senate committee. When you continue to tell stories of your traumatic event, this happens all over again. So the more you repeat your traumatic story of extreme danger or threat of harm, the more you begin to have the experience over and over again. And that's what leads to lasting adverse effects. I call this dysregulation or discombobulation because you don't know whether to stand up or sit down. You have no sensibility about yourself. You feel yourself moving, but you really can't sense yourself moving. The parts of you are disintegrated, disconnected. You become fragmented. So these are some noticeable effects of fight or flight. One of the things that's important is to recognize these very serious effects. Constant surveilling, I call it scanning of your surroundings. Shallow breathing, heartbeat is faster, your mouth is dry, your muscles are tense and stronger. Leg muscles become strengthened and because they're tense. ADHD symptoms, and we're going to talk about hyperarousal, but this constant scanning and looking and peeking and not feeling safe to have anyone behind you. It's an effect of trauma. But these are the hidden effects that people don't really pay that much attention to. So cortisol is a chemical that's released in your brain, and its responsibility is to calm you down. But too much cortisol increases your pressure, your blood sugar, while depressing your immune system. You need your immune system to fight off disease. And so when you have too much cortisol release, your body cannot handle it. And that's when you get sick. And that's when you can't sleep. And that's when your digestion slows or stops, as well as your urine production. And then oxygen and nutrients, the blood flow to the muscles become shunted. Like you get lots and lots of leg cramps. Lots of leg cramps. And they are the big main muscle cramps where you feel like you just want to cut that leg off. One of the things that I found helpful, besides drinking a lot of water, is pickle juice. That's what they give runners, pickle juice, vinegar. And if you just take a teaspoon of that, you could hobble to the kitchen. I keep pickle juice at my bed because they come in the middle of the night and I live alone, so I can't make it to the kitchen. And so just take a teaspoon of that or a tablespoon of that. Actually, I just drink it right out the jar. And that really helps relax the muscle. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the window of tolerance. So this concept of the window of tolerance summarizes the effect of trauma by looking at hyperarousal and hypoarousal. Our brain and body have amazing systems that operate without our permission, as evidenced in the fight, flight, and freeze process. There is a safety zone. I like the window of tolerance, as we all have a pretty good idea when someone or something has gotten on our reserve nerve. The place that when you hear, look, check this out, something tells you to back all the way up. It's a reaction and not a response to a troubling situation. We are just beginning to come around after a year long of not knowing what's going to happen next. Just as we were beginning to come around, and we had a fun 4th of July and a fun Memorial Day, and now we're right back to where we were with people being hospitalized, and those numbers are rising. So that's pretty difficult, especially since we are not supposed to be distancing from each other as human beings. Our bodies need to be touched more than we need food. Do you remember who you hugged first in the year? I do. I was saying that, once it opened back up, and I was writing on Facebook and saying, oh, I'll be able to hug my grandchildren. And my son said, Mama, stop saying that. Those boys were over your house last week. I was like, don't take away my joy. So this window of tolerance, when you have hyperarousal, you feel anxious and angry and out of control and overwhelmed. Your body wants to fight or run away. And it's not something you choose. These reactions just take over. Your system in your body knows exactly what to do. You have nothing to say about it. And then hypoarousal, you may feel spacey, zoned out, numb, frozen. Your body wants to shut down. Again, not something that you choose. The reactions just take over. When you have stress and trauma, these windows shrink the window of tolerance, and it doesn't take much to make you be prickly or throw you off balance. So when you're in your window of tolerance, you feel like you could deal with whatever's happening in your life. You might feel stress or pressure, but it doesn't bother you much. This is the ideal place to be. So you can go into your window of tolerance by simply doing some meditation. And Beth, didn't you say you had a meditation class going in a week or so?
Yes, we have a meditation class that's going to be next week. I think it's on Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah, with Susan Ono. It'll be really good, I think.
Okay. Well, I really want to suggest that people sign up for that. Deepak Chopra also, he meditates for 2 hours. Who does that? If I get by 30 minutes, I'm pretty good. But if you're a seasoned meditator, that's how come he talks in such a calm voice, and nothing pulls him off his trigger, because he's able to go inside and tap into his internal resources. If you have any particular types of meditation that you use, just drop it in the chat and share that with us. So vicarious trauma and secondary traumas, they are similar in several ways and also different in several ways. But let me take a look at with the ways in which vicarious trauma or secondary traumatic stress or STS are similar. So comparing vicarious trauma and secondary trauma signs and symptoms can be used to identify someone who may be suffering from vicarious trauma or secondary trauma. These are not diagnostic, but can be helpful in flagging a concern. They can lead to deeper reflection, exploration, and referral to an expert. So for the purpose of this learning event, we will refer to the terms vicarious trauma to cover the labels of compassion fatigue and empathy fatigue, and secondary trauma to include indirect trauma and secondary traumatic stress disorder. So some of the symptoms are behavioral, which is agitation, irritability, hostility, hypervigilance, and self-destructive behavior or social isolation. So you can see these match the symptoms of PTSD. On a psychological level, you have flashbacks, fear, severe anxiety or mistrust, mood, and your mood is you have a loss of interest and pleasure in activities. So you no longer find joy in the things that used to make you feel joyful. You may experience guilt or extreme loneliness. And then your sleep, you have insomnia or nightmare. And I was experiencing some of this earlier last week where I was feeling a little bit of loneliness and really questioning my state of mind and my well-being. And then I was able to pull myself up out of that by asking myself, well, what's the matter? Tell me what's the matter. And just having this dialogue with myself. I'm healthy. My house is clean. I have my home is clean. I have my plants. I talk to my friends on a regular, consistent basis. Bills are paid. So your mind can take you to a place of discomfort and there's no trigger. There's no stimulant. And your job and your responsibility is to bring yourself back from the edge of that. And how do you do that? Pick up the phone and call somebody. Say, hey, I'm feeling a little lost right now. 9 times out of 10, they'll stop whatever they're doing to have a conversation with you. Remember, asking for help is a sign of strength and it's not a sign of weakness. So vicarious trauma is hard to predict. Sometimes you might be experiencing dissatisfaction with life. It permeates both work and homes, causes health problems, and also causes you to feel out of control. These are the ways in which they are similar. Some of this behavior may be viewed as abnormal by your friends and family and colleagues. And people who may know you or may know the person, they may say, that's not how they used to be. If you hear that for someone, or if you notice that within yourself, it's important to be able to recognize that. Now, here are some of the differences. So vicarious trauma, compassion, fatigue. I'm not going to read all of these, but I'm going to read a couple of them that I think are really relevant. So vicarious trauma and compassion fatigue is cumulative symptoms that are unique to each service provider. So what does that mean? You can't wake up and say, oh, I'm having a bad day, so I have vicarious trauma. It's cumulative. That means it goes on time after time after time with each service provider, each teacher, each supervisor. They're unique to everybody. Your symptoms might not look like my symptoms. However, with secondary trauma, they mirror the impact of the person that you are serving. So if somebody comes in and they tell you a story about child abuse and neglect, and you feel some kind of way about that, you may not have had that in your family, but you connect to their trauma. It's indirect. It didn't happen to you. It happened to another person. And because you're listening, and you have empathetic relationship with one person, then you can, that is called indirect trauma or secondary trauma. It also mirrors the symptoms of PTSD in terms of the behavior, the mood, the inability to sleep. And then with secondary trauma, symptoms of PTSD that are often similar to the client's symptoms. So with vicarious trauma, it's what's going on in you. For secondary trauma, it's what's being mirrored by the client, and you're feeling some kind of way about that. And you find yourself being more than empathetic, that you're really experiencing the symptoms of the client, and you never had that traumatic experience at all. Telling stories, listening to stories, showing up, participating, helping people out. You as a service provider, as a supervisor, you're listening to your staff stories of their clients, and you find yourself being impacted by secondary trauma. It's all about listening to the stories and taking them into your body and having a reaction or a response to that, even though it's not your life. If that doesn't make, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a comment someone is mentioning about, many people live alone and have no one to kind of talk with, and ways that we can, connect and meet other people online. Or, I've been surprised. I have conversations with strangers in the grocery store because, I'm, trying to get people to talk to because I live alone. So, so maybe that's something along the road you can talk a little bit about, or groups that people can join online.
Yeah.
So when people that have started new hobbies, people
Yes.
even put that and do it online. So just wanted to lift that up.
Okay. So at the beginning of the pandemic last year in March, I went to Colombia, and that was a bad decision. But when I looked online, Colombia had no episodes reported of COVID cases. By the time we got there, and everybody it was bustling, and all the vendors were out, and the music was playing, and I love Latin salsa music, and I was just having a ball. And then 2 days later, the whole town had shut down, and we decided that we needed to come back. And I got back, and then I felt very guilty and sad because I was selfish, and my son was really afraid that something would have happened to me. So I shut myself down, and I isolated myself, and I put myself on my own punishment. And that was not good for me because I wasn't connecting with people. I wasn't telling people what was happening with me. And so I went down into a deeper depression until I realized that nobody was calling me, nobody was checking on me, and I wasn't calling or checking on anybody. And then I came to myself, and I started calling people and telling them, I need some help here. Some colleagues that I used to work with, we started a session on Wednesdays. I started a prayer group. I started connecting with other people. And so it meant that I had to ask for help to pull myself up out of that. And being a trauma trainer and a practitioner, even though that is who I am and what I do and how I teach people about that, sometimes I could get sucked into my own dangerous spots as well. So, and that was really a danger spot for me at that particular time. So just notice when you are not doing or feeling or sensing the way that you used to be. People who have active grandchildren are really blessed, because grandchildren are some kind of way that will help pull you out of it when they just say, "Oh, Nana, I miss you so much." That would definitely pull me out of it. So this says, a bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because its trust is not in the branch, but in its own wings. So we've definitely had an opportunity to test our wings over these past 2 years. So now we're going to watch a little video. Just like vicarious trauma, where the professional listener feels the impact of trauma of the client, there's vicarious resilience, defined as the positive impact on personal growth in their lives, like case managers and counselors and volunteers and teachers, resulting from their exposure to their clients' resilience and growth. So let's take a minute to take a look at this.
Sometimes things happen in life that we just can't control. Sometimes they are good things, but sometimes they are bad things. Failures, challenges, mistakes, they happen to the best of us. Today, I want to introduce you to a completely new way of thinking about the bad things that happen to us. Specifically, this is a concept called post-traumatic growth. If you or someone you care about has gone through a difficult experience, then this is a video you have to watch. We hear a lot about the devastating effects of PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, but researchers Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun discovered an interesting phenomenon that can happen after someone experiences a trauma. Specifically, they found that there are some specific areas that researchers have found change after adversity. First, relationships. Some people describe that they come to value their friends and family more deeply after a trauma and don't take people for granted. There is also an increased sense of compassion and longing for more intimate relationships. Second, self-esteem. While some might think that experiencing trauma might make you feel like a victim, many people feel that their challenge gave them a deeper inner wisdom, personal strength, and gratitude. Trauma can even help people be more accepting of their vulnerabilities and limitations. Third, meaning. Trauma can radically change and re-engineer people's life perspective. Oftentimes, after a challenge, individuals reevaluate their purpose and mission, becoming less materialistic and more able to live in the present. If you have experienced a trauma or major adversity and you want to begin to bounce forward, there are a few elements that are known to contribute to post-traumatic growth. First, don't diminish your response to the adversity itself. You have to go through a difficult emotional processing period before bouncing forward. You can think of this like grief. You have to be able to mourn and feel before moving on. Second, the researchers have found that we have to share and talk about the adversity to process it fully. They call this constructive self-disclosure. Bottling up any trauma often leads to a worsening of symptoms. So find a safe place to share the story and effects of your adversity. Lastly, look at how your personal strengths got you through this trauma. How did you handle it well? And what have you learned from this experience? Your number one personal strength is that nothing can stop you. Right now, you're watching this video with me. You are surviving. You're moving towards recovery. You don't bounce back, you bounce forward. I hope this message reaches you and anyone who needs it. If you know someone who might need to see this video, please send it their way with a hug from us. That's it today for the Science of People. Thanks for letting us join you on your journey.
Okay. So these are called COVID blessing cookies. Let's take a look at how we can take care of ourselves with these cookies. So this is a Neiman Marcus cookie recipe that was upgraded by me. It has 3 different kinds of chocolate chips, 2 different kinds of nuts, an extra cinnamon, nutmeg, and allspice. You have to eat these cookies with your shoes off because you have to wiggle your toes. They're not a good thing on a food plan because there's plenty of butter in them. But if you are allergic or cannot eat sugar, you could try monk sugar. And then if you are gluten challenged, then you could use almond flour and just delete the nuts. Okay, so these are called COVID blessed cookies, and I'm gonna send the recipe to Leah and she can share it with you.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
So we all need a little help to dance through this pandemic, and these cookies definitely will make you dance. So here are a few ways to do it moving. Maya Angelou is one of my coaches and mentors, and she said, in every cloud, there's a rainbow inside of it. I say, There is hope, and the light at the end of the tunnel is not necessarily a train. So drop in the chat, dancing through trauma to become resilient takes a commitment and effort. Affirmations, journaling, meditation. Some of you wrote back and said, what surprised you about your survival through this pandemic? And how did you realize that you could do hard things? And what will you keep and what will you toss? And if you weren't able to get to that on the pre-survey, take a moment to drop it in there now. What surprised me is that I have a green thumb. I have plants all over my house. I have them on my front porch. I never liked succulents before. Now I love succulents. And I'm also growing tomatoes and peppers and basil. I just made this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tomato basil goop. And I put it in the freezer, and I'm gonna put it over some, because I'm not eating starch right now. And I'm gonna put it over some spaghetti squash. Oh my God. So tell us what surprised you. Also, these are journal prompts. We'll also send that to Beth so that you can have some prompting for your journaling. Journaling is important to get what's in your mind out on a piece of paper. And then to be able to reflect back on it is always helpful. So if you're feeling some of the hypervigilance and hyperarousal, these are some steps to help regulate yourself. So I'm gonna come back on here so you could see me. Maybe that's not enough. Here it is. Okay. So one of the things that's important is this 5 steps. So first, you want to take your hands and put them on top of your head, and you could feel your hair. You could feel the heat from your head, and you just want to press in lightly while you take a deep 4-1-5 breath. Inhale, hold it, and exhale. The step number 2 is that you put your forehead, your right hand on your forehead, and this is called the frontal occipital holding. Make sure your baby finger is on your eyebrow. And you could use this when you're also feeling anxious or upset or unsettled or disassociated. And so just press in and take a breath. Leaving your left hand on your forehead, move your right hand to your heart. Take a breath. Move your left hand from your forehead to your solar plexus, which is right above your navel, and take a breath. Feel your heartbeat. Notice your stomach going in and out. And then the last one is take your left hand and put it behind your head, right above your neck, on the base of your skull, and breathe in. And while these seem really simple, there's science behind each of these steps that help with the regulation of PTSD symptoms. So I hope you find that helpful. Now I want you to keep your positive mode going right there. And I want you to write in the chat any one of these, because you're figuring out who you are outside of the trauma. So let's take the joy. What lights you up? I usually say what turns you on and lights you up. I have a friend who's on here. What turns her on and lights her up is watching Andy Griffith shows. Cracks me up. So what lights you up? My light up is the gardening and my plants. Drop that in the chat. Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, people are saying spending time with my niece and nephews, music, family, food. I said TikTok.
You make TikTok video?
I like TikToks. Yeah, sometimes I choose the ones that make me smile, and I'll watch them, or little animals and stuff. Walking out in nature, cooking with friends, watching Steven Universe with my daughter, gardening, hiking, cooking, music, musicals, children, baking with friends. So awesome. So many good things people do. Pets. And another person likes gardening. So that's great. These just praying with my friends. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Being around my kids, walking. That's great.
Yeah, when I get stressed out, Thank you, everybody. When I get stressed out, I head straight to the kitchen. I'm an excellent cook, so I love to cook and I love to bake. The problem with baking is then I have to give it away because I don't want to eat all that. So people around me are really happy when I make a pound cake. So now we're going to take a look at 10 things mentally strong people do. And this is from Tracy Hutchinson, and I got it from Psychology Today. So first is limit news and social media. Research suggests that there are two main predictors on how a person will respond in a crisis, like a pandemic. The first is how vulnerable they are in their own lives before the crisis. And the second is how much news they consumed during the crisis. Chronic news exposure may create vicarious trauma and PTSD. Media exposure in the 24/7 news cycle can activate fight or flight responses, which can lead to traumatic stress. For example, in a study conducted after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, several hours of media exposure after 9/11 were associated with PTSD and new physical health issues 2 to 3 years later in participants. So watching what you read and what you take in is really very important. So mentally strong people limit their news exposure, choose reliable and responsible print media, and then limit exposure to distressful images shown on the news. They accept their feelings as normal. Mentally strong individuals accept their feelings as normal because this is a time for both personal trauma and collective trauma. A resilient individual understands that feelings such as fear, anxiety, hopelessness, anger, and sadness are normal because the information is too overwhelming to process at once. Your body knows exactly what to do. It goes into one of your defense mechanisms and it will take care of you. If it's too much to handle, your body, your brain, your mind knows how to kick in to fight, flight, or freeze. According to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorder, or the DSM, the diagnosis of adjustment disorder with anxious or depressed mood is applied to any person who's experiencing symptoms and has had a major life event occur in the last 90 days. And like I said before, this does apply to all of us because we're in a pandemic and it has changed our lives in several different ways. Homeschooling, losing a job, the inability to attend to or be at a funeral or see a loved one in a nursing home. All of these reactions are within normal limits. And then this book, Me and My Feelings, I got it for my grandson, who the only feeling word he knew was annoyed. He's a younger brother. And so this book helped him to be able to recognize that there are other feelings on the feeling charts with exercises and quizzes. And so I was washing his hair. He has locks. And after we did the book, and then I said, how are you feeling? He said, terrified. I was like, okay, this is a new word. And then after I finished, I said, how are you feeling, Parker? He said, I feel relieved, Nana. So it really does work, and it's easy and fun to do with the children. Mentally strong people follow those who display healthy leadership skills and mental health. In 2020, a survey indicated and suggested that providers promote calm and rational action while limiting media and individuals who undermine public health efforts to combat COVID-19. Can you say get a vaccine? It is both confusing and psychologically harmful to watch leaders who publicly argue and misstate facts and the research. It's important for us to get the information and follow people who know exactly what is important for the good of all Americans, for the good of all the people that they are choosing to serve, that they were chosen to serve. Alternative facts. Mentally strong individuals are acutely aware of when their emotions are getting the best of them. So we have three states of mind: an emotional mind, a rational mind, and a wise mind. Our emotional mind is where emotional statements rule. The rational mind is where the facts and logic prevail. And our wise mind is a blend between the two of them. So when I get into my emotional mind, I ask myself, what do I know to be true about this particular situation? And that's using my rational mind. And then the answers come from the wise mind, or what I believe is my intuition. Yes, fear is real. And when I become afraid, I have to stop and sit down and think about, what do I know that's true about this particular situation? And this is my little saying here. If you might remember JFK, John F. Kennedy, he used to say, ask not what your country could do for you, ask what you could do for your country. So I changed that a little bit. And I said, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask is what you can do for your country. Isn't that cute? You can have it. So continuing on, mentally strong people as they choose the leaders, it's just as important to choose to spend time with loved ones who display healthy behaviors and add to your well-being, not detract from it. Even family can be quite negative and take a toll on your well-being. Mentally strong people meditate. They understand the benefits of meditation, and they include anxiety reduction, reduce stress, increase attention span. That means you can focus longer, decrease depression, and improve emotional health and well-being. So your emotional health are your feelings. Your mental health are your thoughts. They are in close alignment with one another. What you think about, you bring about. Write that down. What you think about, you bring about. So if you have a negative thought, all you have to do is say cancel, cancel. What you think about, you bring about. They focus on self-care. They use self-care and attempt to be flexible with new routines. As many gyms had opened up and now they're probably going to be closing again, you get to choose your exercise options that are socially distant, such as running, walking, biking, doing yoga. Drop in the chat any self-care activities that you do. We know Beth likes TikTok to laugh. One of the things that I think is important is that you make your bed every single solitary day, your sleeping area. Because if you don't get any of those 5,000 things done on your list, at least when you come back to your bed, you can say, one thing accomplished.
There's some great things in there. Hiking, yoga, meditation. I soak my feet once a month. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
CrossFit, creating art and crafting. So great. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Slowing down and saying no.
Woo! No is a complete sentence. So taking an inventory of your self-care needs, thinking about what it is that you accept and what you can reject, thinking about your physical condition, going to the doctor or doing doctor over Zoom now, I guess. What are you aware of in your surroundings? What do you notice? That's the question that becomes, what do you notice in your body? What do you notice that you're feeling? What do you notice your thoughts? So important and critical that you have kindness in your choices. You pay attention to your priorities with curiosity and exploration. Be curious about yourself. I'm curious why I thought that. I'm curious why I did that. I'm curious why I said that. Slow down, ask for support, and take pleasure in the things that bring you joy. Now, one of the things that's important is to be able to be a good listener. And this is a technique that I learned when I was conducting trauma trainings, and it's called PEARLS. partnership, empathy, apology, respect, and legitimation. Now, I am a grandmother, and I think I know a lot of things about a lot of things. But when people come to me, first thing I ask them is, what do you need from me? Do you want me to give you some feedback, or do you want me to listen? Guess what they say 99% of the time? I get a lot of feedback, Miss B. I just really like you to listen. Yes, that irritates me, but I honor them for where they are. So these are some tools that you can use to be a better listener. Partnership, let's work on that together. Empathy, wow, that sounds frustrating. Apology, I'm really sorry that happened to you. Respect, sounds like you've gone through a lot. Legitimation, it makes sense that you feel this way. And support, let's see what we could do. So pearls are good for supervisors. It's also good for students and teachers. You know, it's good for anybody to be a listener, an active listening skills, and listening for how you could be helpful without sharing or giving your advice. It's a skill that definitely is required to acquire. I have it down sometimes.
Someone is asking to see the slide again that shows the toxic people slide.
Okay.
I don't know which one that was.
I do.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Act of self-care. I like that. Thank you.
All right. Take a picture.
Yeah. And we also have the link to the slides in the chat, so I'll put that in there again.
Okay, great. So mentally strong people know themselves and what they need to feel supported. Those that are introverted focus on internal states of being, small gatherings versus external sources of stimulating a lot of socializing. So introverts often feel drained after heavy socializing and need to recharge their energy in solitude. Conversely, extroverts gain energy from other people, and they may enjoy social activities. Introverts realize they may have a need to connect virtually using FaceTime, Zoom, or Skype, and Google Hangouts, but may do so in small groups and less often than extroverts. Here's the key though. Both personalities may have different needs to promote well-being. And they pay attention to their thoughts. Here's another little video. So, reticular activation system. And another way to think about that is that remember when you had a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you broke up with them and they had a red car and every car you saw after that was a red car? That's the reticular activation system. So now we're going to go into a little bit about grief. So grief is the loss of something or someone you hold dear. I grieve calling a friend to meet me for a movie or sushi. I haven't been to a movie in 2 years. And I write in the chat some of the things that you can no longer do that you really, really miss. And we'll come back to that. So here are some of the grounding facts about grief. Grief can be defined as a natural response to any loss, including physical, cognitive, behavioral, or spiritual responses. Grief is unique to each individual. Grief is a difficult emotion that must be dealt with, and grief has a combination of symptoms. You may be familiar with the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. The important thing here is that they don't come in this perfect little order. And there's no specific time period. We in this country don't have or give time or honor to grieving or the grief process. The thing about grief is that you don't get to ask permission. It will hit you upside your head when it sees fit. I remember when my mom first made her transition and me and my mom were really close. And one day I was just crying, I want my mom, I want my mom. And I was just so heartbroken. And I could hear her so clearly, oh, Briana, cut it out. And I had to go from crying like that to hilariously laughing. So those are the kinds of things that you can connect with your ancestors or people that are no longer in your physical space. Did you put they put anything in the chat, Beth?
Yes, there are some things there. People miss family reunions, going to concerts, shaking hands, travel, dancing in community. Someone lost their dog after 5 years together, so grieving that. Visiting family, yeah, going to movies and meeting with friends.
Yeah. So we are impacted by this COVID in a different kind of way. Our grief due to COVID is very, very different. And it hurts. And it's important to connect with other people as much as possible. So we're going to look real quick at the difference between grief, which is mental, and depression, which are your feelings. So in grief, if there is an identifiable loss, the person's focus is on the loss. The ability to feel pleasure and pain fluctuates, kind of like I did when I tell you the story of my mom. You have fluctuating physical symptoms. The closeness of others is usually comforting. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Emotions are all over the map. You may express or feel guilt over some aspects of the loss. I shoulda, coulda, woulda is what I call that. Self-esteem is usually preserved after the loss, and then thoughts of death are typically related to wanting to be reunited with the deceased loved one. Depression, on the other hand, may not be related to a specific or identified with a specific loss. It's focused on the person itself. Inability to feel pleasure, and like I said before, the inability to feel joy. Prolonged and marked functional impairment. It's like you can't move. You're frozen. You don't know whether to stand up or sit down. You don't want to be bothered with other people, so isolation is persistent. The emotions are stuck. You just can't get out of it. You don't know. You just don't know why. The things that's important here is that we are all dealing with low-grade depression. As a matter of fact, Former First Lady Michelle Obama, who is my auto mentor coach, revealed last month or so that she is one of those people battling low-grade depression. And she has lots of company. 1 in 3 Americans dealing from the symptoms of stress, anxiety, according to the Census Bureau and the National Center for Health Statistics. We also just saw that Naomi Osaka had mental health problems that caused her to withdraw from a significant tennis match. And they put an article in Psychology Today. It's okay to not be okay. And then we know Simone Biles, she also withdrew. So people are now standing up and saying, you know what? My mental health is more important to me than you watching me win a game or tumble off a bar. And kudos to those folks. So mental health has physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual impacts. I am the president of the Ain't Nobody Got Time for That Club. I have the mug and I have the t-shirt. And how I know that I'm the president is that sometime or another, I have felt these impacts. Body aches and pains, tension in my neck and shoulder, just a general feeling or sense of trembling, blunted emotions. Blunted emotions is where something devastating happens and you just don't feel any kind of way about that. Watching somebody get hit by a car and say, oh, they should have watched where they were walking in the street. That's an extreme example of blunted emotions.
Briana, someone is asking to see the grief versus depression slide again. Wonder if you could show that for.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah, I think they probably want to take it. Remember, we are putting the PDF of the slides will be available to you. So I'll put that in the thing again. Thank you so much.
Okay. I like it when people want to see what I'm saying. That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
And then emotional. One of the ones that's key for me is people get on your reserved nerve. So I have a nerve that's reserved for kids. And then when they annoy me so much, I tell them, you are on my reserved nerve. And they know to really sit down somewhere and be quiet, go play a game. I have reached my limit. So that's what a reserved nerve is. Adults can get on your reserved nerve too, however. Being short-fused and tearful at any time or place, I call that being prickly. Your thoughts are jumbled, confused, you have difficulty concentrating, you try to clean your house, you pick up something from your bedroom and take it to the kitchen, and something from the kitchen and take it to the bedroom. Or you ever walk into a room and forget why you came into the room? Or open your mouth to say something and nothing comes out? Write this down. I'm not going to chase that thought around the room. I am not going to chase that thought around the room. And guess what? It comes right back. It's amazing. I love it. And then on a spiritual level, anger at self, anger at the deceased person, and then anger at God, losing your faith. So these are the final 6 things for you to remember. It's important for you to separate tasks that need immediate attention from those that do not. If you need help, ask for it. Be carefully choose what you will cancel. And it's okay to cancel things. Say, you know what? I changed my mind. There's no change my mind prison. It's okay for you to change your mind. And really what you'll notice is most people don't even notice. Try not to be a people pleaser, putting others before yourself. And do not speak negatively of yourself. If you have a negative word about yourself, like I had a client yesterday and she says, I'm bad with money. That's the same thing with the reticular activation system. People who say they're bad with money, guess what? They're bad with money. Change those affirmations into something that is positive. I do well with money. Or my affirmation is, where is that card? Yeah. So my affirmation is, my income is constantly increasing. I begin now, today, to open myself to ever increasing prosperity. My income is constantly increasing. So what you think about, you bring about. And then finally, writing things down. Don't depend on your memory. You have so many tools in your phone, even if you have anything other than an iPhone. Not being judgmental, I'm just saying. There are notes in there that you could record and dictate your thoughts. Really, really very important place. And if you lose your phone, it's cool because they're on the iCloud. So
Yeah, Leah just posted information saying that we're having a training on Thursday, August 5th on exploring your relationship with money.
oh, great.
Yep, so you can register for that there. So because so much of that is what keeps us circling. Thanks.
Okay. So finally, this is one of my favorite videos. You may have seen it before, knowing your why. So let's take a look at that.
How do I know? A lot of people, when they think of the phrase, how do I know, they always want to put the what behind it. How do I know what I'm supposed to do? The question that you really should ask is, how do I know why I'm here? Because when you know your why, your what becomes more clear and more impactful. If you know, like for instance, people know that I do comedy, but that's what I do. My why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. So I can do comedy, I can write books, I can be in a movie, because all of it is motivated by my why. In fact, I have a new web series out called Michael Jr. Break Time. We probably just did the 6th episode. It's on YouTube. So every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode on YouTube of Michael Jr. Break Time. What it is it's me. I travel around the country and I do stand-up comedy, in case you didn't know. And in the middle of my comedy set sometime, I'll stop and just talk to my audience. And we've been filming this, and it's, you know, it's pretty cool. So we're in Winston-Salem. I'm gonna show you a clip from Winston-Salem. And I'm just talking to this guy in the audience, and he tells me that he's a musical instructor at a school. So I was like, all right, you're a musical instructor, you know, can you sing? Let me hear you sing a song. So this is what happened at the last episode of Michael Jr.'s Break Time. Check it. So you're a musical director.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing, you know what I'm saying? All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Oh, shoot. Dog it.
Right now I'm found, was blind, but now I see.
Okay. Here's what I want you to catch. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what becomes more impactful because you're walking towards or in your purpose.
So that's the key there. When you know your why, you are inspired to move in and toward your passion, your purpose, what you know to be true for you. So I want to thank you for your share and for your participation and for your notes. And wave your hand, Gloria Jean. So Beth, that's Gloria. She's going to be coming to you as a trainer. We're working on that. And we still have some time left. Any thoughts? You could turn your mic on. You could turn your camera on.
Yeah, if you have any questions or you want to make a comment, feel free to unmute and ask your question or make a comment.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes.
And my name is Marilyn. And I just wanted to say that my staff are on, they're home visitors, parent educators for home visitors. And the information was so relative to what we do and our feelings and just the fact of self-care. And I like the ending of knowing the why. And when you know the why, you have the passion to do what you do. I really enjoyed the presentation, and I am so glad that my staff and I were able to attend, because I believe that we needed it. We needed the self-care, and we needed everything that was presented today. And so I want to say thank you, and I'm very happy that we signed up today. So thank you.
I'm so glad you were here.
Yes, thank you.
And I want to remind everyone to do their evaluations so we get this feedback is helpful to us. Bobby, I see your hand up.
Yes, I had a question. When we were talking about extroverts and introverts, as a clinician, why is it that it seems that extroverts and introverts seem to connect? And that is always a challenging relationship. Is that just in the stars? What's with that? I don't know.
So here's the deal with that. And I think it's so funny. I am, as you probably guessed, an extrovert. But all of my friends, my partners, even my son are introverts. I cannot stand to be in another room with another person like me. They're going to be taking up my space. And I just really interesting. I was at a conference this week and there was another woman. She was talking louder than me. I was like, I don't like her. My girlfriend said, I know what. That's just what happens for me. You know, I just appreciate. I think I admire and I want to have a quiet spirit.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Can we have the link to the evaluation? I think I missed it.
It'll be in your email. It'll come
in my email. Okay.
that you use to register. Yes. And Gloria, you have your hand up, I think, right?
Yeah. Let's see. Yes, I do. Thank you so much. Miss B, I just want to say that I appreciate you to the Big Dipper and back. I actually woke up at 3 o'clock this morning and could not go back to sleep. And I was feeling really bad because I said, God, I'm going to fall asleep on her presentation. And I did not. I turned the camera off for a little bit because I had to at least sit on the couch or lay on the couch, but I did not go to sleep. And so that speaks to the energy and the effectiveness of, your passion for making sure that we as providers and we as the persons who deliver the care and the healing really, really take serious how important it is for us to, and I always say this, it's not take good care of myself, because I might not know that if it slapped me in the face, but I have got to take better care of myself. There's no way around taking better care of myself. if I take better care of myself, those watching me will automatically learn how to take better care of themselves. And I might have to do less teaching and less talking. But it's imperative. There's no way around. I believe that we've landed in this place of all of us having to take some deep looks at ourselves, our lives, and the people we love and the people we serve to come up with a better game plan and a better way of taking care of ourselves, because we have learned more than enough about what not to do. And so I just appreciate your passion, the way that you go into making clear that we have no way around where we are right now. We have to go through, and we've got to go through with the skill sets to take better care of ourselves. So thank you, and I'll see you later.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Gloria. Shyla, I wonder if you had wanted to speak. I saw you. I don't know. Does anyone else have? Well, you're welcome to unmute yourself and share.
I did have a question, actually.
Yes, good.
And it was just on the section about the extroverts and the introverts. I was wondering about individuals. I don't know if you're familiar with or not, but individuals that are considered omniverts or ambiverts, and they are a combination of the extrovert and introvert. And I'm asking because I'm actually an omnivert. So you do really well with being out in the public and you have that extroverted sense, but it requires you at the same time to also have to kind of recluse yourself to an introverted status in order to even be able to do
nice
that. So they
balance.
Yeah, it's a combination. So I'm just wondering, like, for the tools that you gave for the extroverts and the introverts, I know it was given for them separate, but for someone that finds themselves being an omnivert or ambivert, which is also known as, do you just kind of combine the two together for yourself, or is there something else? I'm just wondering.
I have absolutely no information about that. I just learned about that from you, but I'm going to do some research and include that into my presentation, because it's great to have a both and rather than just an either or.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. I just Googled it, so they have the difference between ambivert and omnivert, and is it a real word? And so I am definitely going to include that in my presentation.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. So funny thing is, in the Urban Dictionary, I don't know if you hip to that, but an omnivert, someone who is an introvert and an extrovert, can be extremely introverted when presented with situations they don't want to be in or don't care about. But on the other hand, be the life of the party when they are enjoying themselves and want to be there. Both a very quiet, reserved person and loud and outgoing. Cool.
Yes.
I would imagine all of the tools.
That's me.
For them.
Okay, Shauna, you're busted. Hey, Miss Bobby, don't be telling my business in the streets.
Thank you so much, Ms. Briana. I just wanted to say how much I appreciated this training at this particular moment. We've just seen the numbers go up, mask mandate. They're asking us to come back more at some places. So it feels like having these tools again, being reminded of them and learning new ones and hearing everyone's wisdom and your wisdom is so appreciated, because I just, after we got an email from the city last night, I think at 7 about new mandates, my stress level went, whew, and I wasn't sleeping, but just having these reminders really helps me to ground on what was working and putting the other suggestions that came today in place. So gratitude and appreciation.
Thank
you, Vina. Let's see, we have time for maybe another question. I saw somebody unmuted themselves. And yay.
Yeah, I already asked about the evaluation, and I also just want to say thank you very much for the training. It was well worth the time.
I'm so glad.
Thank you so much for all the information. Yeah, I
and we
appreciate
will, we are recording this training, so it will go up on our website.
Okay, that would be great
So you can share it.
to listen to it again.
Yes, yes. Thank you for attending. And
Thank you so much.
and reminding everybody again to fill out your evaluation. It helps us so much in terms of knowing what trainers to bring back, what topics you want, because we want to provide things that are going to be helpful to you.
Can you resend the evaluation, because I was trying to open it and I mistakenly deleted it.
Oh, sure. I'll have, let me make a note here to myself and I'll have Leah resend it.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. You might look in your deleted folder. It might still be in there. Great. Well, thank you so much, Ms. B. As always, we appreciate you. And you are going to be coming back to us with the training on, I can't remember the title exactly. It's something about being nice, but the basic is that
Nice to be nice.
It's nice to be nice, is that you don't have to be a therapist to be therapeutic. That I bet you don't have to have numbers after your letters after your name and all of that to be therapeutic. And we know that because of all the good work that you all do. So thank you so much, Ms. Moore, for coming back and giving us that.
Ashaki Gaines has a question.
Oh, who does?
Ashaki, I'm probably not saying it right.
Please. Ashaki? Ms. Gaines?
It's Ashaki. She's
Ashaki, thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was trying to speak earlier, but it wasn't going through. I had a question for you about grief. I noticed that in your pages about grief, it talked about grief from death, but what about grief from a divorce or a loss of someone being in your life that is still alive? And no matter like the time that passes, it's still very impactful because it's affected like every facet of your life. What would you suggest for someone?
Well, if you notice on the slides, it wasn't just about death. You grieve if you lose your car keys, right? Anything you lose, anything you displace or misplace, you will have a grief process around that. So including somebody who's alive, a divorce or a breakup, any of that. And you will have those 5 stages of grief. There's also a man, his name is Francis Wellis, W-E-L-L-E-R. And he wrote the 5 gates to grief. Very simple, but it talks a lot about rituals and routines in order to deal with it. The first gate to grief is everything you love, you will lose. And the first one, it really made me mad. I said, I'm not losing my son. What are you talking about? And so my mind said, you're going to lose yourself. You're going to die too. So you just need to accept and adjust to that. But it has these 5 gates to grief that are really, really relevant to anything that's going on that you agree. So I really want to suggest that to you, Ashaki.
Yeah, he's wonderful. And if you Google him, you can find, can't remember the name of his website, but he sometimes holds different retreats or has people as part of his organization that hold retreats. But it's a wonderful book.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. All right, well, we're almost at noon. Again, Ms. B, I want to thank you so much for being here and being with us, and yay, round of applause for Ms. B. And we want to thank all of you for coming and all of you for being here today.